move on now to complaints made to the Ombudsman for banking services in South Africa. It has found that fraud remains one of the biggest challenges in this sector. Two other matters of concern highlighted are the finalizations of deceased estates as well as the collection of prescribed debt. For more on this matter, we are joined by Banking Ombudsman Reana Steyn. Thank you so much for your time, Reana. Let's first talk about what is meant by fraud. Complaints that have been received. Banking consumers are making these complaints, saying what exactly, what type of fraud is becoming somewhat of a trend that we are seeing?
Good morning. So we classify our complaints according to the banking products. So let me give an example. We classified according to current accounts, digital banking, ATMs, credit cards, and across all the products. The biggest problem that caused the issue and that caused the complaint was fraud. So customers are suffering losses. They experience a problem due to fraud. And of course, in all those instances, it's fraud committed by a fraudster or a scam, and the consumer was the victim. They fell for the fraud, they fell for the scam, they paid over money. Sometimes they don't know how the money disappeared, sometimes they know exactly what happened, but they fell for a scam. And then they turn to the bank to ask them to reimburse them or to help them recover the money from the fraudsters. So across all products, as I say, from current accounts, internet banking to ATMs, the issue that consumers faced mostly was fraud.
And the recourse becomes even more important where the role of the banking ombudsman as well as the banking sector as an industry. How is that navigated if a consumer feels hard done by or duped?
So our role is to, we live the last resort to resolve a dispute between the consumers and the banks. So if you go to your bank and you have an issue and they do not resolve it, you can turn to us. We are a free service. We're independent. So our office employs, a group of lawyers, and we independently investigate the complaint from scratch. So we listen to the consumer. We hear what the problem is on their side. We get a report, full report from the banks, but they do give us very good cooperation. Right from the highest level, they do cooperate, and they give us all the information from printouts and system printouts and information and documents, and then we investigate and we make a finding. The consumers do not have to combine, or listen to that finding. So if they're not happy, if they find that they don't agree with us, they of course have all their rights. None of their rights have been taken away. They can go to court. They can go and find another way to resolve the matter. But if I make a finding against the bank has to listen, and they do. So if I tell the bank to pay the money back to the consumer for whatever reason, and we have recovered last year 30.3 million that we ask the banks to repay to consumers for various reasons, of course.
Reana, given that process of investigation and coming to a finding on these matters, to what extent is there a role to play by the actual consumer where you find that information was given to a fraudster?
Sorry, you're breaking up a little bit, but I think you're saying that to what extent was the information compromised to a fraudster? Is that correct?
My question is with regards to the role that's played by consumers, myself and many other banking clients that would not willingly give the information to a fraudster, but maybe unknowingly doing so.
Yes, no, most definitely. So in some instances, it's willingly given, for example, if there was a scam. You paid money over for a holiday, but it's a scam. But most of the time, those phishing, the phone calls where the fraudster pretends to be from the bank, that still happens on a daily basis. You would think that every South African banking consumer by now would have heard that they mustn't fall for those scams because the bank won't phone them and the bank won't ask them certain things. But I promise you, every single day there are consumers, especially elderly consumers, who are targeted and they fall for that scam. So they do believe they're talking to the bank and they will give the OTP because there's a threat that they will lose all their money and all their savings, and they think they're talking to the bank. So they fall for it. And there are still other people who fall for phishing. So the phishing is very sophisticated. You're on your laptop and you think you're on the bank's website, but it's not the bank's website. It's a fake site. So, yes, it's definitely not willingly given, and it's unwittingly, but the information, the bank can prove that the information was submitted for the transaction.
On that note, how do we protect ourselves as consumers? Also bringing in a debate around measures that need to be improved or tightened by the banking sector to protect the consumer in this regard.
Yeah, I think the biggest way that consumers can, protect themselves is to be knowledgeable, to understand, and to read up, in the news. To make sure that they understand what is happening out there. Because, of course, the fraud also changes. There are different scams. And the journalists, fortunately, such as yourself and others, they talk about it, they write about it. So read about it, read about the latest scam, read how other people lost their money, and be knowledgeable about the products you use. And if you're not sure that you understand all the dangers and the risks, talk to your bank and make sure that you put measures in place, like a low daily limit, for example. So the banks have their measures in place, and they're also evolving all the time, because as the fraudsters evolve, they put extra measures in place. But most of the time, almost every case that we've seen, it was the human error on the side of the consumers when it comes to fraud, victims of fraud. There are other matters where the bank's employees or the bank systems fell short and where we could recover money. But in the fraud space, it is mostly the consumers who still falling victim.
Thank you so much for your input. That is Reana Steyn, who is the Ombud for the banking service, talking there about the latest report that's highlighting that fraud is still one of the biggest challenges in this sector.